A very good afternoon to you, great 12 learners. My name is Mr. Simbi, and welcome to our Paper 2 revision. This lesson is brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Sabono Discovery Center. It is a lovely day that we can join again today after we wrote our Paper 1, and now we are preparing for our Paper 2, which we are going to sit for tomorrow. Here are my objectives for this lesson. I'm going to speak to the structure of paper 2, and in today's lesson my focus is only going to be on cost accounting. The reason being, I've already done fixed assets and I did them when we were preparing, I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago. There is a lesson which I did completely on fixed assets. So if you need any calculations, problem solving on fixed assets, you need to go back to those lessons. And I also covered your inventory valuation. I remember I did your first in, first out. I did a weighted average, and I did a specific identification. I did all the other calculations that pertain to our inventory valuation. I also did problem solving and other theory questions which are in relation to our inventory valuation. But I never got the chance to do cost accounting because of the number of days that we were having. So I've decided today that instead of bringing all the 3 topics, let me focus only on one topic, which is our cost accounting. So in today's session, I'm going to be doing purely cost accounting. It is very important that you tell your friends that Mr. Simbi is on, then we can begin today's class. Let us go. So my objectives are clear in today's class. I'm going to be doing cost accounting. But before I do that, let us go and speak to the structure of the paper. Please forgive my voice today. As you know, it's the cold season, so my voice may be a bit hoarse, but I'll try to scream as much as possible so you can hear me. But nonetheless, it is very important that we are in today's class. So the structure for our paper 2 for June, it is going to be focusing on the management of resources and internal control. So we look at our management of resources and internal control, and you see that the structure for paper 2 in June would be different from the structure of paper 2 in the prelim as well as in the final. So the structure for paper 2 in June, we're going to look at our cost accounting, which will give you plus minus 50 marks. And then we look at our inventory valuation or stock valuation, and we look at plus minus 50 marks. And then lastly, we have our tangible assets. As I said, if you need calculations on fixed assets, there is well explained calculations which I've done, I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And please do make sure you look for that video, and then you can also do your problem solving in that particular lesson. So your tangible assets will give you plus minus 50 marks, and you expect that your total would be 150 marks. Now, in your inventory valuation, you're looking at your 3 methods. That is your first in, first out, your weighted average, and your specific identification method. These are the 3 methods that you would look forward to getting. Okay. And then towards the end of the year or at the end of the year, you will find that for your trial and your final, exams, the structure of your paper now will include more other content. So you still have your cost accounting, you still have your inventory valuation, your tangible assets, and then you would have done budgeting now. So budgeting will be included, as well as reconciliations, that is bank, creditors, debtors, together with your age analysis. And then would have covered value-added tax as well. But I'm not going to do this today. If you are listening from the start, this is what we would expect when we get to the prelim as well as the final exam. But in today's class, I'm going to be focusing only on these 3 aspects. That is your cost accounting, your stock valuation, and your tangible assets. That is what we are looking forward to. But because of time, I'm not going to do all the 3. Today, I'm going to focus only on cost accounting. So let us then go. It is very important that you know your format. Very important to know formats. If you have been attending my classes, I keep saying Formats are of great importance. So you need to know your format of the production cost statement. All right. So it begins off with your direct cost, where you get your direct material, your direct labor, and that will give us what we call prime cost. And then you have the factory overheads, and then you come to total manufacturing cost, whereby you then add your work in process at the beginning of the year and then subtract work in process at the end of the year for us to arrive at the cost of production of finished goods. So that is what we need to do today. All right, let's go on. There is our work in process. And the next aspect that you need to know is your abridged statement of comprehensive income. The abridged statement of comprehensive income, you need to know its format as well. The abridged statement of comprehensive income. So without further ado, we're going to do our first activity. So as I've said before, you must have received a worksheet that has come through to your teacher, or it could be your friends that managed to send you this worksheet through. So if you receive the worksheet, I'm going to be working through that particular worksheet. I'm going to be answering interesting questions. If you have any questions for me, it would be also good that I get to hear them and I try to answer them to the best of my ability. So today I'm going to begin off first with our NSC June 2023, and we're looking at Ladoo manufacturers. As I always say, reading time is very important. So it is also of great importance that you get to the exam venue on time. Get to the exam venue on time, that you do not lose the reading time. You read your question paper together with the answer book, and then you get to understand what the examiner demands from you. And then here on Ladoo manufacturers, it reads, the business manufactures leather purses. The financial year ended on 20th February 2023. Required. We're going to calculate the factory overhead cost. That will win you 8 marks. And we're going to prepare the production cost statement. And that will score you 10 marks over there. Okay. So here's the information that we were given. And with this information, we are going to do our factory overhead cost. You need to read the information and really understand what the examiner is saying. So we're going to read word for word what we have here so that we can see how best we can answer it. It reads, the bookkeeper calculated the factory overhead cost of 2,638,600, which is what we have here. And it goes on to say, the following costs were omitted and must be taken into account. So we have information which was omitted, which was not considered when we calculated the 2,638,600. So we need to take it into consideration now. But we need to treat each information individually because its effect might differ to the next one. Okay, let's hear what it says. Number one, it reads, insurance is a fixed monthly premium. Insurance is a fixed monthly premium for the entire financial year. The amount paid of 235,950 includes the premium for March. Okay, so if you saw right at the beginning of financial year ends on 28 February 2023, it is very crucial when you are writing your exam that you know your financial period. So your financial year ends on the 28th of February. That means it must start on the 1st of March, and we must get 1st of March 2022, and we must get until the 28th of February 2023. However, the premium includes a payment for March 2023. So we also have here March 2023. That simply means we have the first 12 months plus one more month to make them 13 months. We have received now for 13 months. It means I'll come now and I'll say insurance here. Here is my insurance. I open my bracket. Then I'll now say, I am given 235,950. 235,950. But this 235,950 includes 1 month, which we have paid in advance. So we don't want the 13 months. We want only 12. That means I'll then come here and I'll say, what I want is 12, but what I have is 13. Okay, so I'm going to come here and I'm now going to say, okay, I'm trying to look for my adding machine. And then I would then come and say multiply. We now need to come to the next adjustment. We need to come to the next adjustment, whereby we are told that 2/3 of this expense relates to the factory. So I'm going to come here, but first we need to get the amount. First we need to get the amount. In order for us, we need the adding machine. So kindly give me exactly 1 minute. Then I'm going to join you again in exactly 1 minute.
Excellence. Excellence is a habit. Excellence is a quality you have, a quality I have. It's a quality we have when we honor what is true to us. Yes, we are gifted differently. uNkulunkulu akasinganga ngokufana. Excellence is striving for your best. Whenever you have a particular project, test, homework, uzibuze, ask yourself, is this my best? Can I put in more effort? Excellence is striving to be in the top 1% of the area in which you are gifted. And so I challenge you, in every single thing that you do, in every single area that you're gifted in, whether it's sports, it's academic, ucula, whatever that gift is, strive for excellence.
Welcome back. I managed to fix the adding machine. You remember last week I had a problem. I did not have my calculator in studio with me, but today at least I have it. Let's see if it's going to work today. There you are, my good friend. Okay, so we then say, we're taking our 235, 950, and then we're multiplying it by 12 over 13, by 12 over 13. That is what I want. Okay, and then I get my 217,800. All right, then that 217,800, that 217,800, I'm now going to say, then they say 2/3 of this expense relates to the factory. So I want what goes to the factory, which is 2/3. So I'm going to come again and I'm going to say multiply by 2 over 3 by 2/3. And that's going to give me 145,200. So I close my bracket. I get my 145,200. What was the trick? First, you have to adjust for the prepaid amount. First, you must take out the prepaid amount, which is the 1 month. But we just did a shortcut. We just got our 12 over 13 months because what we want is for the year. So we wanted the 12, yet we paid for 13. So in other words, we subtracted the 1 month. Okay, so we subtracted the 1 month. Then whatever we got, then we got the 2 over 3 of that to give us 145,200. Okay, if I were to do it very slowly, it would mean I said 235,950. Then we have 1 month, which is a problem, multiplied by 1 over 13. All right. So if we are to do it very slow, it's 235,950. We divide it by 13. Then we get per month, which is 18,150. Then we now say, so it's 18,150. Then we now say the 235,950 minus the 18,150. That is now going to give us, then we say minus 235,950. That is now going to give us 217,800. When you have a 217,800, we got to that point now. Then you now say multiply that by 2 over 3. That is how you come to this one. So there are two ways. The first way, get only for 12 months. by taking the 1 month out of the 13. When you get the 12 months that remain, then get a portion of that. That must be taken to the factory overhead. In this case, it is 2/3 of this expense that relates to the factory. Okay, let's quickly move on to the next one. The next one is water and electricity. Allocated to the office was 69,200. So I'm coming here. I'm now going to say water and electricity. They say that the water and electricity allocated was 69.2. Note that the water and electricity is shared according to the floor space as follows. So this 69.2 was allocated to the office. So it is going to the office. This water and electricity. This is for the office. Okay, so for the office, it is 69,200. So we're going to come here, then we're going to say now, what we want is for the factory. So what we want is for the factory, which is 560. But what we have is for the office, which is 160 over 160. Then we multiply by the rand value for the office, which is 69,200. So we simply did the what you want over what you have. Then you close your bracket over here. So we are coming to say what you want is 560 and what you have is 160. And then we're going to multiply this by 69.2. And that's going to give me 242,200. So I'll come here. That gives me 242,200 like this. That becomes my water and electricity. Then now it comes and says the following entry must be corrected. So what we are now having is an error. Now we have an error. This is an error. It reads, rent of 316,000 was recorded in the factory overhead cost. However, the bookkeeper used the incorrect ratio of 2:5:1 for the factory sales and office. The correct ratio is 5:2:1. Whenever you hear that, always subtract the incorrect amount. So I'll come then I'll say, how much was the incorrect rent that was put in? 316. So I'll come then I'll say minus 316. I've taken out the incorrect amount. I've taken it out. So you take it out first. Then you now say, what was the right amount that was supposed to go there? To get that now, we need to say, what we had calculated here was 2 parts. 2 parts of what? 2 plus 5, that's 7, plus 1, that's 8. So we gave 2 parts of 8, and it became 316. So we want to know how much it was before it was shared. So what we want is 8 over 2. Then we multiply that by 316,000. 316,000. Let's see how much we're going to get. So we're going to come again. Then we're going to say, what we want is 8 and what we have is 2. Then we multiply this by 316,000. And that is going to give me 1,264,000. So I come here, I get what? 1,264,000. The 1,264,000 is the entire rent amount before it was incorrectly shared. Now, the moment we have the entire rent amount, now we can share it the right way. We must give 5 parts. 5 parts of what? 5 plus 2 plus 1 of 8. We must give 5 parts of 8 to the factory. So it's going to be 1,264,000 multiply by 5 parts of 8. That is going to give me 790,000. So it means first I come and I subtract the 316, which was incorrect. Then I come and I add the right amount which must go in there now, which is my 790,000. So I come then I say plus 790,000 like that. And then I close my bracket. Let's see. So it means, I'm not going to say, minus 316,000 minus 316,000 plus 790,000. Like that. That is going to give me 474. I'm going to come here and have my 474,000 like that. And you can see on my calculator, it is a positive 474. So you keep it as it is on your calculator. And then there's nothing else. So I'm going to add all my figures. Take note to add the amount that is already given in your answer book. So let's see our calculators. We're going to start adding. Then we're going to say 2,638,600. 2,638,600 plus the 145,200 plus 145,200. All right, plus 242,200, 242,200 plus 474,000. And eventually that gives you 3.5 million. So I come here, then I get my 3.5 million. 3.5 million. Once I have this, I quickly come now onto my production cost statement. And I'm going to come just under my prime cost. Remember, you know your format by now. So under my prime cost, I'm going to come and I'm going to say factory overheads. Here is my factory overheads. And my factory overheads is 3.5 million. So I'm going to say my 12.5 plus my 3.5. My 12.5 million plus my 3.5 million, that will give me 16 million here. So I already have my total manufacturing cost, 16 million. And if I add these two figures, my 16 million plus my work in progress at the beginning, I'm now going to get my 16,542,000. You can see here, there is no rocket science that we've done. We're just following what we're given and we're flowing with it. And then we come here and we're told now, details of the workers in production. So that means we now have our direct labor cost. You will see that there's different ways of testing this direct labor cost, many ways. The other way is what normally comes in our statement of comprehensive income. I have an example which I'm going to show you again today. All right. But in this one, we're given the normal time, and then we're given the rate, and then we calculate the normal or the basic salary, and then we add our overtime. At times, the examiner will also bring your employer's contribution. So you need to add the employer's contribution, but I'm going to explain this as we go. And when I do the other type of example, you will see how these direct labor cost adjustments do differ. Okay, let's go. So here we are told that we have 40 employees. So we have 40 guys. And their basic or their normal wage rate is 60 rands. So their basic wage rate is 60 rand. That is 60 rand per hour. Okay, 60 rand per hour. So let's see how much that is going to give us. I like taking things step by step. So if I say 40 by 60, that is going to give me my 2,400 here. Okay. And then how many hours did they work in total? The normal time, they worked 1,920 hours. So I'm going to multiply this by 1920. Now let's bring the adding machine then. So you're going to say 2,400. Multiply this by 1920. And then that is going to give me 4,608,000. So I'm getting my 4,608,000. What is this? This is my basic or my normal wages. So this is my normal wages or my basic. But the employees also worked overtime. All right. And we're told that the overtime is 1,142,000. Okay. So we're going to add these ones. Let me just come here now. I can open my bracket there and I say my 4,608,000. And then I come and I add my 1,142,000. Then I close my bracket over there. That is going to give me 5,750,000. 5,750,000. That's an easy calculation here. 5,750,000 over there. Okay. Another option is when you are told that the employer contributes. The employer contributes. So in other words, you're given the employer's contributions. The employer's contributions, remember, these are cost to company. So they must be added onto your direct labor cost. If you get that one, then you must still add it onto your direct labor cost. Okay, so the next one that I'm going to do now is my direct material cost. And to get that one, that's very simple. I'm going to take my 12.5 million, which is my prime cost. Then I subtract my direct labor cost, which is 5,750,000, like that. So I'm just getting the two differences to give me my direct material cost. And that's going to give me 6,750,000. There we are now. 6,750,000. Now we are left with one thing to get work in process at the end, or we can get the cost of production of finished goods. You can see here, we are not given the work in progress at the end. We're given at the beginning. That means we must find that figure. So examiners can play around. They can give you that one, then you have to find the cost of production of finished goods at the end. In this case, we were given that one. And again, there are different ways in which the examiner can give you this cost of production of finished goods at the end. I'll try to explore all of them today if time permits. But in this case, we'll take the number of units, which is 33,500. So I'll come here, it is my 33,500. And I multiply that by the cost per unit. So in total, we have produced 33,500 units. And it cost us 475 per unit. So we multiply this by 475. So I'll then say 33.5. We multiply this by 475. And that will give me my 15,912,500. 15,912,500. It has to be less than this particular amount here, because here you're going to come and subtract now. So you're just going to get the difference. Let me show you on the calculator. You erase everything. You take your 16,542,000. 16,542,000. 16,542,000. Then you subtract your 15,912,000. Your 15,912,500. And that is going to give you 629,500. So you get here 629,500. That becomes your work in progress at the end of the year. 629,500. This is how this particular question was to be completed. And I think we did it very well and very fast as well. I keep hearing complaints from you guys that, Mr. Simbi, we can't finish the exam paper in time. Even last week's paper, I have a lot of guys that were saying, Mr. Simbi, we couldn't finish. I want to encourage you. Try to be as fast as possible. The faster you are, the better your chances of finishing the paper. Okay, let's quickly go on to the next activity then. The next activity is question number 2. Question number 2, all right? This is from the NSC November for the year 2023. Okay, so here we are, and we want to calculate our factory overhead cost. So I want to show you the different ways in which examiners can test this particular area. Okay, so we did the first one. Now we are on the next one. We're going to try to be a bit faster now. Let's see if that's going to work. Information is very important. It reads, the bookkeeper calculated the factory overheads at 600,000. And we're told here it's an incorrect total. So we have to correct it in that case. Okay, remember in the previous question, we had information which was omitted and we had error. So we had two things. Okay, so however, you made the following errors which must be corrected. So let's correct the errors. The closing stock of factory indirect materials, 7,000, was omitted. Okay, all right, very interesting. If it is the closing stock of indirect materials was omitted, you understand that whenever you are calculating your indirect material cost, you'd say opening stock plus your purchases minus closing stock. That is what you would always say. So they're telling us that the bookkeeper forgot to subtract the 7,000. So what do? We come here, then we say indirect materials. What is that? 7,000, that must be subtracted. Okay. Another option that can be exploited with this one is when you can be told that the bookkeeper forgot to reverse or to do the reversal of the previous year's closing stock. In other words, we did not record the opening stock for this particular year. So in other words, you have to add it if such a thing is possible. Okay, so I just wanted to talk about the closing stock, which was not subtracted. But if it was the opening stock that was not yet recorded, then you have to add that amount when the bookkeeper forgets to do the reversal. Okay, we normally see that in the statement of comprehensive income. That comes quite a lot. Let's go to number 2. The total water and electricity cost for the year, 84,000, was included in the factory overheads. So it is the total amount for water which was included in the factory overheads. This should be allocated as follows. So we agreed it last time that once an incorrect amount is included, what do? We take it out. Water and electricity. Let's take it out. How much are we going to take out? 84,000 minus 84,000. Minus 84,000. We take it out. Then we're told this was supposed to be allocated as follows. So this is the total. We know that the 84,000 is the total. But what must go to the factory is 60%. So we then come and say this multiply by 60%. We need 60% of this amount to go to the factory. So let's get our adding machines again. We're going to come in, we're going to say 84,000 times 60%. That's going to give me 50,400. 50.4. That is the right amount that we must come and add here. Plus 50.4. Like that. Now, on your adding machine, you should now come and say minus 84,000. You have to punch it in the way it is. It's a negative 84. Minus 84 plus 50,400. That is going to give us a negative 33.6. What come here, it's a negative 33.6. A negative 33.6. That is how it has to end up over there. Okay, let's go on to the next one. There are several ways in which you could have done that one also. A number of ways I'm going to show you maybe later on with the other calculations. But it is always wiser to take out the error, add the right amount. Very simple. Okay? I know some of you are saying, Mr. Cindy, there's a faster way of doing it. I know. But the safest, take out the error, add the right amount back. Okay, let's go to number 3. It reads, factory insurance of 45,000 was allocated according to the old ratio of 3:1:2 for factories, sales, and office respectively. It should have been allocated according to the floor space as follows. So we're coming to factory insurance. Factory insurance, I open my bracket now. So we are told the insurance of 45,000 was allocated according to the old ratio. So here I must get my 45,000. Let's allocate it to the old ratio. Let's see how much was it going to be. The old ratio is going to be 3 plus 1 plus 2, that's 4, that's 6. So we're allocating it as 3/6. Okay, let's do it again. Factory insurance of 45,000 was allocated, or this is already for the factory. So that simply means if that is already for the factory, we want to know how much it was before it was allocated. So what we have here is 6. What we have is 6, and what we want is 6, and what we have is 3. We want 6 and we have 3. Yes, we want 6, the total. We want the total before it was given to the factory. Yes, we want the total before it was given to the factory. So we want the 6, and what we have is 3 multiplied by 45,000. Let's see if we can put that in the calculator. So what we want is 6, and what we have is 3, and we multiply that by 45,000. And that will give me 90,000. So 90,000 is the amount that is for insurance in total. That is the amount that is for insurance in total. Then we made a mistake and we say that 90,000 we then gave 3/6. That is how we got to the 45,000, which is incorrect. So what we wanted to get was the 90,000. Now, the moment we get the 90,000, which is the incorrect amount, the 90,000, we then say it should be allocated according to floor space as follows. The factory must get 1.5. The factory must get 1.5. And the total is 1.5 plus 3, that's 1.8 plus 600. Okay, let's get our calculator. Okay, so it's 1.5 plus 300 plus 600. That will give you 2.4. So we want 1.5 over 2.4. Let's see if that is going to come out. So what we want is 1.5. What we have is 2.4. Then we multiply everything by 90,000. And that is going to give you 56,250. So here we're going to get 56,250. Now, once we are here, it becomes easy because I have taught you already. Factory insurance of 45,000 was allocated. So that 45,000 is incorrect. And I've taught you once that is the case, what do? You come, you say, let's take out the incorrect amount, which is 45,000 minus 45,000. The right amount is 56,250 plus 56,250. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to say minus 45,000 plus 56,250. And that's going to give me 11,250. Okay, so I'm going to come here, then I'm going to get my 11,250. And it's a positive amount. Then let's quickly close everything up here now. Let's go. So I'm going to start off with my 600,000 at the beginning. 600,000. Then I'm going to say minus 7,000. Minus 7,000. Then I'm going to say minus 33,600. Then I'm going to say plus 11,250. And that is going to give me 570,650. 570,650. Like that. 576.50. Okay, let's quickly go on to the next part of this question. So we're done now with our factory overhead cost. The next part now, we are coming to calculate our direct material cost. So you will see that many examiners can bring different ways of calculating the direct material cost. Like in this case, they were using an inventory valuation method, which is your weighted average, to determine the value of the fabric. Okay, so what do we get from here? We want to calculate the direct material cost. Okay, the cost of the direct material that was used up in production. What we know is raw materials that was issued to the factory is how much? 18,900 square meters. So here I have my 18,900 square meters. That is what was issued for production. Okay, and then I now need the next aspect, the price. What is the value that we can give to this? And we're told to use the weighted average. Now, with the weighted average, you need your available for use, which is your 800, where you say your opening stock plus purchases. in rands, then you get the 958. You divide it by the opening stock plus purchases in meters, which is your 20,400, which is your 20,400. And then if you divide this, that's going to give you 47 rand. That 47 rand, that becomes your cost per meter. So if we gave 18,900 meters of fabric, yet each one is 47 rand, how much is that going to give us? So it's going to be 18,900 multiply by 47, 888,300. 888,300. 888,300. Once we get that one now, we'll then bring it to our production cost statement, and that becomes my direct material cost. My direct material cost, where I have my 888,300. And you know, if you add this two, they'll give you straight your prime cost. Okay, so far we've done a different way of calculating direct labor cost. We've done a different way of calculating direct material cost as well. Okay, let's quickly move on to the next aspect. So remember, we have our direct material cost, which we got already, our direct material cost, and the amount that we got was 888,300. Thank you. And then if we add these two, we agreed that we come to what we call what? We call this our prime cost. And our prime cost, we're going to add those two. How much is that going to give me? 1,296,900. 1,296,900. And the next thing that I'm going to bring here is to add my factory overheads. Is to add my factory overhead cost. Remember, we calculated that one where we got our 570,650. 570,650. So if we add this two, it will give us our total cost of production here, which is going to be our 1,867,500. So we come now to our work in progress. Then we say plus our work in progress at the beginning. Our work in progress at the beginning is 0. There, given. So that means I'm going to have my 1,867,500. Then the next part is going to be for me to subtract my work in progress at the end. And how much is that? That is going to be 235,500. So I'm going to come and subtract 235,500. And that is going to give me my cost of production of finished goods, which becomes my 1,632,050. Like that. End of story. Okay, so you would find that with this type of a question, we're doing it straight from the top all the way to the bottom. It is a bit different from the other production cost statement that I did earlier on. Okay, where you could also get amounts even from the middle. Here, we do not get the amount for work in progress. We have it, it is 0. Okay, we have it, it is 0. So that's why we kept that 1,867,500. So this was a different way of completing your production cost statement. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in a different twist to it. Okay, where we also have the statement of or the abridged statement of comprehensive income. The abridged statement of comprehensive income. So here we're going to do our production cost statement again and the abridged statement of comprehensive income. Okay, we're going to give you two guys 2 minutes. 2 minutes, then I'm going to see you after a 2-minute break.
Excellent. Excellence is a habit. Excellence is a quality you have, a quality I have. It's a quality we have when we honor what is true to us. Yes, we are gifted differently. uNkulunkulu akasinikanga ngokufana. Excellence is striving for your best. Whenever you have a particular project, test, homework, uzibuze, ask yourself, is this my best? Can I put in more effort? Excellence is striving to be in the top 1% of the area in which you are gifted. And so I challenge you, in every single thing that you do, in every single area that you are gifted in, whether it's sports, it's academic, ucula, whatever that gift is, strive for excellence.
And welcome back. Before the ad break, we did about 2 production cost statements. We also did calculations on the factory overhead cost. Now, I have here another production cost statement and an abridged statement of comprehensive income. Let's see what we can do here. So this is for Prudy manufacturers, and it's in November 2021. And then let's begin already. Here is information that we were given. Okay, let's begin with the first calculation. So earlier on, you remember I gave you a different way of calculating direct labor cost, because here is our direct material cost given. So here, let's come and see if we can calculate our direct labor cost. Okay. In this one, we can see that we're given net wages paid to production workers, and the total deductions is 22% of the gross wages. It is very important for you to note that your gross wages is 100%. Then you come and you subtract deductions, which in this case is 22%. That will give you your net wages. Your net wages, which is now going to be 78%. Now, that 78% in rands is equal to 647,400. 647,400. So it therefore depends on what you want to get. Do you want to get deductions or you want to get gross first? But in our production cost statement, we show the cost to company That is the gross wages. So what we want here, is 100. And what we have is 78. Then we say 100 over 78 multiply by 647,400. 647,400 like that. Then we close bracket. So I'm going to come here now and I'm going to say what we want 100. And what we have is 78. And then we multiply this by 647,400. 647,400. And that is going to give us 830. So I'll come here, then I'll get my 830,000 there. 830,000. That becomes my direct labor cost. If I add this 2 then, it will give me my prime cost, which is going to be my 2,324,000. 2,324,000. That becomes my prime cost. Okay, let's see if we can do adjustments to the factory overhead cost. Let's go and do that. So the bookkeeper calculated the following cost for the year ended 28 February. So we are given these ones. It was discovered that she did not take the following into account. Okay, so here is our abridged statement of comprehensive income. And we're going to be focusing on these two. But some of these adjustments must also be adjusted to our factory overhead. So I'm going to do them over here. Okay, let's begin with the first one. So it must be possible for you, all right, to do your factory overhead cost adjustments at the same time as you do your abridged statement of comprehensive income adjustments, all at the same time. It reads, the first adjustment, the telephone account of 22,400 was posted in error to the factory overhead cost. All right. And then this expense relates to the office. Okay, this one is easy. If we have a telephone account of 22.4, which is posted in error to the factory overhead, the easiest thing is the obvious thing. So what do? You simply go and you take it out from your factory overhead minus 22,400. Where do you then take it? Then you come and you take it to the office. The office is the administration plus 22.4, like that. So you simply took it out of the factory overhead and you added it onto the administration cost. That's a simple adjustment. Let's go to number 2. The entire amount of rent expense, 98.4, was posted to the factory overhead cost, full stop. And we have learned that the moment an entire amount is recorded incorrectly, we always take that entire amount out first before we can do the correction. So the first thing is take out that error. So we're going to come here and we're going to say minus 98.4. Okay? Then let's go in here. This expense should have been split in the ratio 7:2:1 between the factory, the sales, and the administration. So we're going to split that amount now. Let's begin. How much is our amount? Our amount is 98.4. That 98.4, we're going to split. The first amount is 7. 7 plus 2 plus 1 plus 10. The first amount is 7. 7 of the 10. 7 of the 10 is going to go to the factory. Let's see how much that is going to be. So it is going to be 98.4. Is that correct? Yes, 98.4. Then we're going to say 98.4. We multiply by our 7 over 10. 7 over 10. And then that's going to give us 68,880. So we're going to come here and it's 68,880. So where are we going to go? We come to our factory overheads, then we say plus my 68,880. We take that to the factory overhead because it is the 7. The 2, so it will be 98.4 again, multiply by 2 over 10. The 2 must go to the cells. So I'm coming again to say, here, the 2 over 10, which is 19,680. 19,680. That goes to the cell. So I come here, then I say plus 19,680. That goes to the cells. And the last one, the 1, goes to administration. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to say, all right, let's see. So we come here, we get the 1. The 1, which is 9,840. Okay, 9,840. Where is it going to go? The 1 goes to administration. So that is plus how much? 9,840. This was one cost for rent, which we were to split. So this rent adjustment can come in many different ways. Okay, let's go on to the next adjustment. It reads, the insurance expense of 26.4 was divided equally between the factory overhead cost and the sales department in error, full stop. Okay, so if they say the insurance expense of 26.4 was divided equally, all right, so how much was divided then? So we say the 26.4, if it was divided equally, we're dividing that by 2. That means 13.2 was recorded to the factory overhead and the sales department. So we go to the factory overhead, then we say minus 13.2. We go to the sales department, we say minus 13.2. Always take out the error. Always take out the error. So we took out the error. Now, the moment we've taken out the error, we then come then and say 60% of this expense relates to the factory. So it's going to be 26.4 times 60%. So we're going to come here, then we're going to say 26.4 times 60%. 15,840. All right, let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Then they say 60% of this expense relates to the factory, and the balance applies to the sales department. So what we did is we came and we said the 26.4 times 60%. That's how we get the 15,840. So we're going to come in, then we're going to say plus 15,840. Then they say the rest, the balance. The balance is 100 minus 60 is equal to 40. So the balance is 40. So it's going to be 26.4 times 40%. So we're going to come here and then we're going to say 26.4 times 40%. How much is that going to give us? 10,560. So that's going to give us 10,560 over there. Where is that going to go? They say it applies to the sales department. So we come to the selling and distribution plus 10,560 like that to the sales department. So we have completed this part now. No more errors. Let's close it up. Let's close it up. Let's start first with our factory overhead. We can start with our selling and distribution. Let's start with our selling and distribution. It's 224,960 on your calculators. 224,960 plus 19,840 minus 13.2 plus 10,560. It's going to give you 242,000. We good? Okay, let's close up our administration cost. We're going to say 187,760 plus 22,400 plus 9,840. That's going to give you 220,000. And then we add up this 2 to get the amount at the top. We add up the 2 to get the amount at the top. The amount at the top is going to become 462,000, like that. And then if we can close up this one now, if we can close up that one, we are now going to get, it's 520,280 minus 22.4 minus 98.4 plus 68,880 minus 13.2 plus 15,840. Then in total, it's going to give you 471,000. 471,000. Okay, so that would then close that part. Let's see now. All right, so we come now to our production cost statement. In our production cost statement, remember, what did we have? We already calculated our direct labor cost. All right, remember our direct labor cost was 830,000 here. 830,000. Remember, we got that one. And we add that to get our prime cost, which was our 2,324,000 over there. And then we add our factory overhead cost, which we've just done now. And how much is that? That is 471,000, like that. And then we were told there is no work in progress at the beginning or the end of the year. So we're just going to add these two amounts, and that's going to give me 2,795,000. 2,795,000. Okay, that's how I would finish my production cost statement. But then let's see the next activity. But before I go on to the next activity, someone would say, but we did not finish the what? The abridged statement of comprehensive income, because we need our what? Our cost of sales. The way we're going to get the cost of sales was we're going to come here and we have all the information that we need here. So let me open a T account here. And I'm going to call it my finished goods stock account. My finished goods, it's a stock account. That means on the debit, it's a plus. On the credit, it's a minus. Okay, so finished goods at the beginning, I'm going to get my balance brought down here. That's 72,000. And then I come here, I close that up. Then I get my other balance, that's 96,000 here. That's my balance brought down, 96,000 over there. We stick together. And then that means here it becomes my balance carry down. That's 96,000 over there. Okay, and then did we get any cost of production of finished goods? This is the cost of production of finished goods. I bring this figure there. All right, so I'm going to bring it. That's my 2,795,000. 2,795,000. So basically, we're going to say 72 plus 2,795,000 minus the 96,000. And that's going to give me my cost of sales, which becomes 2,771,000. So we simply say 72 plus 2,795,000 minus the 96,000. Then you end up with 2,771,000. So we can go back here now and say my cost of sales is 2,771,000, like that. And then that will give me now my gross profit. If you say 4 million minus the 2,771,000, that gives me 2,324,000. And if I take my gross profit minus my other expenses, then I'm going to end up now with my net profit over there. Okay, I end up with my net profit. Let's quickly go on, as I am now behind time. I need to do the next one. The next one is a bit different again. The next one is a bit different, which is NSC May, June 2024. Okay, here it is. And it is also very, very different from the ones that we have done. Okay, so I'm going to quickly do this one very fast, and then we come to our break-even calculation and analysis. So we are told again, there's an incorrect amount calculated by the bookkeeper of 258,200. Then they say the following errors and omissions were identified and they must be taken into account. So the first one is water and electricity expense was omitted. So you can see here, so we're going to come here, then it's water and electricity. Okay, was omitted from the factory overhead cost. 75% must be allocated to the factory and the remaining 25 to the administration. 9.6 was taken to the administration. So you will have to understand that we have the water and electricity, the total, which is 100%. And then the factory will take 75%. And then the administration would take 25%. And that 25% is the 9.6. So what do we want? We come here, we want 75, which is for the factory. What we have is 25. You multiply that by 9,600. We close bracket. And then we are coming here, then we get our 28,800 like that. That's the first part. Then we go on to the next one. It says, the total rent expense, 142,800, was recorded in the factory overhead. I think you've heard this for 1 millionth time now. So it is my rent here, I'm coming, and that rent amount of 142.8, I subtracted. I'm going to come and say minus 142.8 here. Was recorded in the factory overhead. This should have been shared according to the floor space. Okay, so we're going to come and we say 142.8. That should have been recorded. 220 plus 120, that's 340. 340 plus 80. All right, let's calculate it again. So the total that we have here is your 220. The total rent expense of 142.8 was recorded in the factory overhead cost account. This should have been shared according to the floor space. And the floor space is 220 plus 120. Okay, so it's 220 plus 120. Then we say plus 80. That's going to give us 420. But what we want is the 220. So it's 220 over 420 there. So it's going to be 142.8. 142.8. Then we multiply that by 220 over 420. And that's going to give us 74,800. So we come here, then we add the 74.8. Then if you say 142.8 plus 74.8, it's a negative 142.8. Then you're going to end up with a negative 68,000. So here it becomes a negative 68,000 there like that. And then the last one is insurance expense. 48,000 was allocated to the factory overheads in error using the ratio 4:2:1. However, the correct ratio is that. So we're going to come and then we're going to say insurance. We open bracket. Once we hear in error, we always take it out. 48,000 recorded in error, we take it out. And then we have to come again to get the initial amount. So it's 4 plus 2 plus 1. That's 7 over 4. Multiply that by 48,000. And that's going to give us 84,000 before it was split. Then we now say that 84,000, then we get, now the correct one is 5 over 8. 5 over 8. And that is going to give us 52,000. So we come here, then we add 52,500. 52.5. All right. And then we come here and then we say 48,000, a negative 48,000 plus 52.5. That's going to give us a positive plus 4.5. A plus 4.5. So eventually our total here becomes 223,500. 223,500. And the last part is on the production cost statement. All right, because we already got our factory overhead here, which is your 223,500. So if we add this 2, definitely it will give us that amount there, which is 1,629,300. And if we add this 2 again with the work in progress, I'm going to get 1,660,000. Okay, so here we're going to need now to get our direct material cost. And we are told the stock of raw materials is valued according to the FIFO. Okay, so this is not going to be much of a challenge. We'll simply say the total fabric that is available, which is open bracket, 823,600. We need to subtract the closing stock. How do we get the closing stock? Closing stock, we're going to say 70,000, which is available. Subtract what has been used or issued to the factory, which is 59.5. How many meters of fabric are left? That is your 10,500. So we look at the most recent purchases. The most recent purchases are in October. So we look in October, that is 10.2. So we multiply that by 12.20. All right. So we say 10,500 multiplied by 12 Rand 20. And that is going to give us 128,100. So I'll come here, then I subtract 128,100. This is your FIFO. You look at the most recent purchases. And then that's going to give us 695,500 over here. And to get my direct labor cost, I'm simply now going to say my 1,405,800, which is this one, minus my 695,000 over there. And when I close my bracket, that's going to give me 710,300. And then we come to the end of this one. All right. And you were given this additional information, okay, where you are told that the work in progress at the beginning is 30.7. So we come here, it was given. But you're also told that we produced 20.2 uniforms and the cost is 79 per uniform. So we're going to come here and you're just going to say 20.2, then you multiply by 79. You close bracket, that's going to give you 1,595,000. And again, you get your 64.2. Let's quickly go on to the next part where I can do my break-even calculations and commenting. So the first one is going to come from the NSC November 2020. And here is the information. Okay. So the question that we're going to begin with says, calculate the break-even point for purses. So you know that when you calculate your break-even point, you're going to take your total fixed cost. How much is your total fixed cost? 936,000. 936,000, your total fixed cost, over your selling price per unit, which is 295, minus your variable cost per unit, which is 255. And that is going to give you your break-even point, which is going to be 23,400. That's your break-even point. The next question then says here, comment on the level of production achieved and the break-even point for purses, quote figures. So we need to comment on the level of production. There is several ways in which you can use to comment, but one of the easiest ways that can earn you more marks in an exam is when you comment, but you are focusing on your profit. Comment, but focusing on your profit. That will most likely give you the maximum number of marks. So you are now saying, let's look at what the business has done. The business has produced and sold 24,000, but the break-even point is 23.4. Here is 23.4. Okay, so would say the business has produced. So my point number one would be that the business has produced, and sold, the business has produced and sold 24,000 units. The business has produced and sold 24,000 units, which is 600 units, above the break-even point, of 23,400 units. Okay, so in this case, you have compared two things. You have compared your production to your break-even, and you have also brought in the difference, which is your profit. So you can also bring it and say the business has realized profit. The business has realized profit on 600 units. The business has realized profit on 600 units. All right. So this is the profit that they've realized. But let's see if we compare it with the previous year. How much was the profit in the previous year? This minus that is 1,100. So the profit is on 600 units, but this is lower. This is lower than the previous year. Okay, the previous year, we're talking 2020. This is lower than 2020, where the profit was on 1,100 units. Okay, so these are points that can really give you maximum points. So here you can see that we can say there is a decrease in profit here. We can say that there is a decrease in profit. There is a decrease in profit. There is a decrease in profit of 500 units. Of 500 units. There's a decrease in profit of 500 units. If you compare your 1.1 and your 600, there is a decrease in profit there. Let's quickly go on to the next question. The next question then comes and says, apart from inflation and wage increases, give two other possible reasons for the increase in direct labor cost. What can cause an increase in your direct labor cost from 105 to 135 apart from inflation? So they're saying, don't talk about inflation. Point number one, we can talk about overtime being paid. It is because overtime was paid, and overtime is always at a higher rate. Overtime is always at a higher rate. Another reason why we can have an increase in our direct labor cost, it could be that we paid our employees bonuses. Okay, maybe we paid them bonuses. I'm going to give a third point why we might have paid higher salaries. It might be because our employees were being interrupted. Maybe it could be that there are interruptions due to maybe machine breakdowns. Interruptions due to machine breakdowns. That can be another reason. Interruptions due to machine breakdowns or other reasons. Or it could be, lastly, that our employees are poorly trained. These are poorly trained employees. Okay, it could be that our employees are poorly trained. Let's quickly go on to the next one. Give two reasons for the decrease in the direct material cost. What can lead to a decrease in direct material cost? This can be very easy now. So here our direct material cost was 125, now it's 100. What has caused the decrease in the direct material cost? Number one, maybe we have a new and cheaper supplier. We have a new and cheaper supplier. Next one, maybe we are now buying local supplier. We now have a local supplier, so it means we no longer pay on transportation, or it is closer, so transportation becomes cheaper as well. Or it could be that there is better supervision. Better supervision means now there's less wastage. Better supervision means there is less wastage. And then lastly, it could be that we bought in bulk, so we're enjoying bulk discounts. It could be due to bulk discounts. We bought in bulk, so we got discounts. In the next activity, I'm going to allude as well to the economies of scale. Okay, you understand that we're talking about when you buy in bulk, you enjoy the benefits of a drop in the cost per unit. All right, 2.2.6, it then reads, calculate the percentage increase in the selling price of jackets. So our jackets were selling at 780, but now they're selling at 1,170. So if we want the percentage increase, we would say our new price, which is 1,170, we subtract the old price, which is 780. And then that gives us a difference. Then we divide it by the old price, which is 780. You multiply by 100 over 1. And that will give us our 50%. Okay, now, explain the impact of the increase in the selling price of jackets on the sales and profit code figures. So we increased our price from 780 to 1,170. What impact did that have? First one, the number of units. Okay, let me come first to the top one. The number of units produced and sold. Let's start with this one here. The number of units produced and sold has decreased. So that's my point number one. That the units produced and sold decreased. The units produced and sold decreased from 6,350 to 3,631. So the number of units produced and sold has decreased. This is because of the increase in the selling price. Okay, and then the next one, if you can check that your break-even point, okay, it has dropped from the 5,000 here to the 3,750. So your break-even point has dropped from 5,000 units to 3,750 units. Okay, so I'll give you 2 points only here, and then let's move on so that I can touch other aspects before we conclude. Taylor wants to increase profits on the jackets by an additional 250,000. This is one very common question that examiners love a lot, and they can ask this in different ways. Okay, they can give you the units, then you have to calculate the additional profit that can be made, or they can give you the profit, then you calculate the units. So here they say they want to increase the profits by an additional 250,000. By an additional 250,000 in the next financial year, assuming the cost structure remains the same. Calculate the total number of additional units he must produce to achieve this target. So you're going to say your 250,000, which is the profit that you want to realize, divided by your contribution per unit. Your contribution per unit, remember, it is your selling price per unit, And how much is that? 1,170 minus your variable cost per unit. All right. And your variable cost per unit was, how much was the variable cost per unit? Your 700 minus your 700. So if you say that 1,170 minus your 700, 1,170 minus your variable cost, which is 700, that gives you 470. So we divide this by 470. This is your contribution per unit, profit per unit. So we expect to make a total profit. We want to increase our profits in total by 250. Yet our profit per unit is 470. How many units then should we produce and sell? So we then say your 250,000, and then you divide it by 470. And then that will give you your 532 units. Your 532 units. These are the number of units that you must produce and sell. The flip side of it is when they say the owner intends to increase his production. The owner intends to increase his production by 532 units. Calculate the expected profit he is to realize. So you simply take the 532, you multiply it by the profit per unit. Okay, so this is the number of units he intends to sell extra above. And then per unit is going to realize profit of 470. Then the question comes and says, how much is his total profit that he's going to get? It still comes back to 250. Remember, we rounded up on that figure as well. Then let's quickly come to the next one. Now, control of raw materials. So these are very common questions that can come. Control of raw materials, control of direct labor, how to supervise employees, how to manage our raw materials, because theft can happen, as well as misuse of raw materials. So let's come to the first question. And the first question then says, calculate the meters of fabric that are missing. Calculate the meters of fabric that are missing from the storeroom. So this one is very easy. Would come here and then would say, if these are missing from the storeroom, at the beginning we're 2,700 meters. We're 2,700 meters at the beginning. And we purchased 10,800. Then we said plus 10.8 that we purchased. And then at the end, we are left with 850. And then we issued to the factory 12,450. So if we punch this in the calculator, it will give us the raw materials that are missing. It will give us the raw materials that are missing. And on our calculator, it says it is 200 meters that is missing. And then the next one says, calculate the meters that is wasted. So these are two different questions now. Missing means it is stolen. Wasted, it means from the raw materials that we issued to production. How much do we issue to production? So here is the first one. The second one, we issued to production 12,450. That is what we issued to production. Okay. And then we want to know how much were we supposed to have used? Because we are told here that fabric is purchased at a price of 120 per meter. It takes 1.5 meters to make one travel bag, and we made 7.8. So it means if we made 7.8 travel bags and it takes 1.5 meters, how many meters must we have used? So it becomes your 7,800. Then we multiply that by 1.5, and that gives me 11,700. So we say what we issue to production, we should have used only 11,700. That is what we should have used. So it therefore means what was wasted is 750 meters. We simply say what we should have used against what was used. Then the difference there is your wastage. Okay, so this can happen in many different types of questions. Then they say, apart from installing cameras, so they're saying don't mention installing cameras. Provide a specific strategy to improve internal control in the storeroom and factory in each case. Okay, so let's talk about the missing. All right, if it's missing, then we can do number one, physical stock counts. Okay, we can do physical stock counts. These must be regular physical stock counts. And then we also need to monitor the movement of our fabric. We need to monitor the movement of our fabric. Okay, we monitor the movement of the fabric. And then lastly, we can also bring in division of duties. Division of duties that one person does the ordering of stock, another person does the receiving of stock. You need to mention and state two different people partaking in two distinct roles. That is how you explain your division of duties. And then the last question before I can say my goodbye, it reads, calculate the total cost of fabric lost and wasted. So remember, what was lost was 200 and what was wasted was 750. That means in total it is how much? 950. And then we are buying it at 120 per meter. So we're saying 950 by 120. That in total is going to give us 114,000. My good learners, we have come to the end of today's lesson. There is so much that we could have done. But once again, you need to remember that you need to prepare your inventory valuation, your first in, first out, your weighted average, and your specific identification. You must know all the calculations on calculating the value of closing stock, your calculation on cost of sales, your calculation that relates also to missing units, your calculation that relates to internal controls on the missing units, not calculation, but internal controls on your missing units as well. You also need to know specific indicators, such as your stock holding period, your stock turnover rate. All right, these are indicators that can also be coupled or married together with your inventory valuation. And if you go to the my inventory valuation presentation, which is again on this channel, you'll find that there are different ways in which an examiner can ask you, okay, calculate the number of days it will take to sell the closing stock. This is all the questions that can be asked. All right, or we can say calculate the average stock holding period, or calculate the stock holding period using closing stock. But these are all the options that an examiner can exploit. So you need to go and relook at these options. When it comes onto your inventory valuation, remember also questions that has to do with problem solving. Identify stock that may not be selling and what can we do in that case. Remember your three methods: your P4, specific identification, and the weighted average. When we come to our fixed assets, remember I did also a very long lesson on fixed assets where we calculated depreciation using different methods, how to calculate profit or loss on disposal, how to see if I'm being tested on the 1 rand residual value, how to calculate missing amounts on note number 3. All that was covered very well in the lesson. And the worksheet was sent by your teacher. Please, if you don't have it, we still have time. You can quickly go and have a look at that lesson. Problem solving on fixed assets is very important. It comes in very many different ways. It can be vehicles, it can be helicopters, it can be tractors, it can be scooters, maybe it can be quad bikes that we are hiring out to our customers. So we need to have all these problem solving techniques on how to manage the problems that can come when we have our assets. And then we come to cost accounting. You have to be able to do calculations that pertain to your factory overheads, your production cost statement, as well as your statement of your bridge statement of comprehensive income, and then calculate your break-even point as well as analyze. Look at control of resources, such as your direct materials, your direct labor. How best can we control these? I wish you all the best for tomorrow's paper. It has been exciting having you from January until now. And I want you to know that after exams, after the holidays, these lessons are going to continue. If you feel left out, but you've been joining, make sure that going forward, you do join. I know it's a lot now because you have less hours and you have so much content to cover. That is what happens when you don't prepare in time. If you have been attending our lessons regularly, every Friday at 2:30, I'm always here. If you have been doing that, most of the things that I'm saying will never be new to you. So I want to encourage you, after the exams, make sure that you start following our lessons. I wish you all the best for tomorrow. Make sure you arrive early at the exam venue. Take your calculator, take all your stationery. Keep your head up. I wish you all the best for tomorrow. Until next time, enjoy your exam tomorrow. It is goodbye.